Hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, it's going to be a bit different from my usual content because in today's video, we're going to be discussing topics in gaming that I am very fond of and that I feel the need to discuss on since I'm in this demographic of people. So this will be the first of a potential series that I plan on working on. It's a review, but it's a review on a certain aspect of gaming. That aspect is accessibility, because accessibility to me is very important and I appreciate it so much whenever developers go out of their way to implement accessibility into their games. So today will be the first of many videos that I will be making where I discuss and talk about what I believe would make good accessibility features and what other developers could and should add in order to help those of us who are disabled enjoy and experience these pieces of media. So with that being said, let's get right into the first accessibility review on this channel, which will be none other than The Last of Us Part 2. Let's do this. Now, real quick before we dive into the actual review, allow me to give an introduction on what my condition is when it comes to using accessibility in games. I am visually impaired, therefore I use a lot of the visual and display accessibility settings in order to help see. As for navigation and traversal, because I find it difficult to get from point A to point B sometimes because I'm not able to see where point A or point B is. So let's get started with my settings in The Last of Us Part 2. I use all these settings. Allow me to run through them. I have the HUD turned to the largest it can be. I have audio description on to where I swipe up on the touch bar and it'll read me a small description of the area I'm in along with my ammo and health.
You are standing, health, 81, semi-auto pistol, equipped, 10, ammo loaded, 3, reserve, crafting available.
I have a navigation accessibility on where I click in the left stick and it points me in the direction of where I need to go. I also have this accessibility setting that is basically listen mode sonar, which scans the area for either enemies and or items that I may want to go and grab. Both of these are very useful for when I'm looking around an area and I want to be sure that I've grabbed everything. And yes, I will admit I do abuse this quite a bit. This is my third playthrough of The Last of Us Part 2 and I'm quite happy with it, and I'm honestly taking my time with it. The reason being is because I'm making sure I grab everything and I read every single note, or to be more specific, I listen to every note.
What do I do here? How do I? We just started. I shouldn't have said that to her.
And it helps a lot in getting the grand scope of the overall story that Naughty Dog was telling here. I love it and appreciate it so much, and I feel like every other game should add audio description for either option scrolling that Naughty Dog also provides.
HUD color, white, changes the color. HUD color blind mode, HUD flashing, on. High contrast display, off.
Or just everything in general. Scrolling through my items, scrolling through the backpack, scrolling through notes. Everything is got text to speech or an audio description for it, and I love it. I also have combat accessibility, where a arrow will point in the direction of where an enemy is noticing me from, so I can see where the enemy is and then take cover accordingly. I also have combat accessibility to where if I go prone, I am practically invisible. It has made for some quite funny moments where an enemy is looking directly at me and I go prone and I'm suddenly invisible to them. So I have it on unlimited, but you can also put it on limited or none at all. And all those accessibility options work phenomenal. Alright, now let's dive into all the accessibility options that The Last of Us Part 2 provides for those of us who are disabled. Naughty Dog has provided alternate control accessibility, such as full button remapping, making it easier for us to put in certain commands to different buttons, and along with that, the ability to switch certain inputs to hold instead of tap. For example, when grabbed by an enemy, instead of having to mash square, I can switch it to hold, and all I have to do is hold square in order to escape an enemy's grasp. Along with that, it also gives us lock-on aim strength, arc throw lock-on, which are throwables and things like that. You know, auto weapon pickup, auto weapon swap. It's all very, very useful for those of us who have difficulties putting in specific commands, and it's much appreciated. Next up is magnification and visual aid, such as being able to change the HUD size, HUD background, and color, and high contrast display, which mutes the environment and makes items, enemies, and allies much higher contrast, thus making it easier for those of us like myself who are visually impaired, easier to see. And this one's actually much appreciated for those of you who have motion sickness, thus being able to tweak practically most of the effects that a camera has in game, such as camera shake, motion blur, and other things of that nature, like field of view. And honestly, it's quite amazing that Naughty Dog would even go this far to add accessibility such as this, and it's very, 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 very impressive. Good on you, Naughty Dog. Alright, now time to get into the accessibility that I primarily go into and switch on almost every setting. If I'm being honest, I have almost every setting in this category turned on. Navigation and traversal. In here, you can find navigation assistance, which basically puts a big arrow pointing in the direction to go once you click in the left stick, and honestly I use this constantly because I do get lost, and honestly I wish every game would implement something like this because it's very useful to help those of us who have a difficulty seeing where to go get to where we need to go. It also has a ledge guard, which is pretty self-explanatory. If you're near a ledge that's a bit too high, the controller and an audio cue will play telling you, hey, there's a ledge here, you might want to be careful. There is also enhanced listen mode, which when going into listen mode, tapping square will scan a specific range of an area and inform you on where the enemies in said area are located. Tapping circle, on the other hand, tells you where items in this specified range are located. You can also tweak the range to be higher or smaller, and if I'm being honest, I have this setting on and I have it set to the highest it can be. There is also a skip puzzle option, which if you reach a puzzle in game, you have the ability to go into the options and skip it. These kind of things are always appreciated, at least by me and probably by most of you gamers who use accessibility features on the daily, because sometimes puzzles are a little bit too much for us to do. Text-to-speech and audio cues. This one is quite useful for myself since I have very difficult times reading small text in game. This, when enabled, will read every piece of dialogue on the screen. So when grabbing a note or going up to a sign and interacting with it, the text-to-speech will read it to you. And I love this so much, and although I do have to wait about a minute or so, depending on the length of a note, to hear it all the way through, I very much appreciate this because it helps me get a feel for the entire world of The Last of Us and the world that Naughty Dog was going for here. And if I'm being honest, some of the notes that I've read with this feature have gotten me to feel some kind of way, whether that be happy, sad, or just overall emotional. It's great and I love it, and I feel like a lot of games should implement text-to-speech accessibility. And it also reads, as I showed previously, it reads options and things like that, so it's great. And lots of games, as far as I can tell, such as Far Cry 6 and Ubisoft games, do provide this feature, and it's amazing. As for audio cues, there are audio cues for combat, for guitar, and things like that. So for the guitar, whenever you are hovering over the correct note, there's an audio cue that will play for you. And for combat, when an enemy is going to strike or an enemy sees you, it will play an audio cue informing you, hey, you know, this is what's going on, and you can then react accordingly. There are also vibration cues for guitar strumming and combat, which is the exact same thing as the audio cues, but instead of having an audio cue, there is a vibration in the controller that pretty much says, hey, you're on the right one, good job. Lastly, combat accessibility. This provides a plethora of accessibility when in combat encounters, such as grabbing a hostage, they will not escape, enemies couldn't be switched to not be able to flank the player, and when your allies are grabbed, you can pretty much switch that to off, so your allies will never get grabbed. There is also invisible when prone, which can be switched to limited or unlimited, which you all already know, I have this switched to unlimited. Also, having the ability to turn on and off weapon sway, so when aiming, your weapon will not sway, thus making it easier for you to aim. Along with this, you can also turn on slow motion, which makes the game a lot slower and a lot more easier for those of us who do not have very quick reaction times. And with that being said, that is all the accessibility that Naughty Dog provides in The Last of Us Part 2, and if I had to give it a rating from 1 to 10, Naughty Dog gets a solid 10. No wonder they got an award for accessibility. They've got plenty, and they got everything that we really need. At least they can provide for me, and they can provide for a lot of you as well. Good job, Naughty Dog. You make me proud.
Please.
The amount of accessibility that Naughty Dog have put into The Last of Us Part 2 is amazing. I am proud and I am happy to say that there is plenty to go around here for those of us who are deaf, visually impaired, who have trouble putting certain inputs in. It's all here. There is even a stream. I'm not aware of who the streamer is, but I'll try to put a little card up on screen right now of who, but I also heard a while back that there was a streamer who played The Last of Us Part 2 completely blind, and that honestly makes my heart happy to hear, because just knowing that even if one day I lose my vision completely, I'll still be able to experience and play games such as this one and have an amazing time. I am in love with this game primarily because of the story and accessibility, but I'd rather not get into that at the moment. We're just focusing here on gameplay and accessibility. Everything is fleshed out, and I cannot stretch this enough when I say The Last of Us Part 2 is my favorite game when it comes to accessibility, and I'm proud and hope that Naughty Dog continue with this trend of adding accessibility into their games, as well as Sony in general, because I've heard that they've been adding and pushing for more accessibility in their exclusives. As for God of War Ragnarok, which I have heard has over 60 accessibility features, which I cannot wait to get my hands on. The Last of Us Part 1 has also been on my radar, which has also been stated to add accessibility in there as well, which I will in fact get into at a later day, where I will make my own video talking and giving my thoughts on The Last of Us Part 1, the remake of the original 2013 The Last of Us. So, with that being said, the video will be wrapping up soon. Accessibility is something that I find very important in gaming and in general. Accessibility allows people such as myself to experience these pieces of media without any problem and honestly enjoy and call these things our favorite games. The Last of Us Part 2 is a game I go back to constantly, primarily because of the accessibility and the gameplay. I hope going forward, the gaming industry pushes for more accessibility in every game. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, something new, something different. Expect more content similar to this in the near future, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
Hey, Joel.
Ellie.
Don't you dare take it off. My birthday, my rules.